distinguished guests, Director General, members of the Matthias Corvinus Collegium Board of Trustees, students, and members of the press. Ladies and gentlemen, we shall begin our second day discussing the future of publishing. The moderator of our first panel is Gladden Papin, co-founder of American Affairs and a visiting fellow at MCC. The discussion is titled Money and Media, Online Success Stories.
Thank you all for coming this morning. We can go ahead and welcome our guests up on the stage for this panel on money and media. We have Roland Tichy, the founder of Tichy's Einblick. Thank you so much. Happy to welcome back also Yair Netanyahu of the Yair Netanyahu Show. And István Kovács, the director of Megaphone. Well, there are many examples of how to become successful in the online media world, and we have three of them on stage with us today. But what really unites them and all of us really, and what motivates this panel is the question of how to become successful in online media when your ideas are rejected by the mainstream. And people talk about mainstream media, and we talk about we were talking yesterday, basically, the political leanings of the mainstream media platforms have become more apparent over time. And Yair was making the point yesterday that the idea that media is completely neutral has kind of disappeared over time. It was maybe an artifact of the 70s and 80s. But I wanted to start out with just allowing each of them to talk about their personal story and how they got to their positions and founded their outlets, and particularly to talk about maybe some of the political headwinds and challenges that led them to start those ventures, and then we'll take it from there into a discussion. So István, I thought I would start with you.
Thank you. Let me start with saying how privileged I feel for being here. Thank you for the invitation for all the organizers. Then I must continue with clarifying things because I can recall the first time when Zoltán, my good friend, I don't see him, Zoltán Szalai, speaking of, first told me about this conference in December, and he told me that there's going to be a conference on media, and I said, wow, it's going to be good. He said, you will be there. I asked back, why so? What we are doing is not media. So you can tell you on stage, he said. So I must start with clarifying that what Megaphone does and what Megaphone is. So Megaphone is not a media outlet. What we are doing at Megaphone is not media. Even though it may appear, I mean the contents we are creating may appear as the ones created by media, what we are doing is not media. This is why we call ourselves a political action group, an online political action group, action committee, in fact. So my story was I was involved in, politics or close fields of politics in the past decade. I founded a think tank called the Center for Fundamental Rights, which might ring the bell for some of you. We are organizing CPAC, Hungary, but we were the first rightist conservative organization or think tank in Hungary with a legal focus. And it was something really new in the Hungarian market, and I believe that, of course, beyond our hard work, that's what put us in the position we are in nowadays. And the situation was something similar with Megaphone because it was really new, not only in the Hungarian market, I guess, but I dare to say that it's one of a kind worldwide, because I of course don't want to say that there are no other organizations creating, elite quality pieces of content. But what we have is like a movement. It started as a movement, and it was first all about education. We offered average Joes to become content creators, political commentators, if you want. And this is the real power behind Megaphone. So if you are reading the mainstream media about Megaphone, you will get that we have a lot of money. We are creating propaganda content, which no one really cares, but we paid people to watch. And until they believe that this is the situation, this is good for us, because they will never, reach what we reached. They will never achieve. So they will not get the real spirit of Megaphone, which is a bunch of people. First, of course, we had no money at all. It was me and two other guys. And we decided to help people to let their voice heard in social media. And it turned out that many felt like we did, that their right-wing conservative opinion is oppressed in social media. And we saw that time that social media, especially Facebook, in Hungary, it's really the factor. Of course, in every different segment of life, so in politics as well. So we wanted to change the game, because we felt that you can barely hear any conservative or rightist voice in the social media, while it was more than evident that on Facebook, every political opinion should be presented in Hungary. So what we decided to have an educational system for average Joes, and we trained them from zero to hero. So we did it. We gathered a bunch of people, professionals, like, someone dealt with advertising on the market, and it was all the same. I turned to someone who I guessed that might share our views on the world, so right-wing guys, and I asked them whether they would join some initiation, and it was all the same that, even though I share your thoughts and I totally support you from the background, my biggest partner is, for example, Coca-Cola. No one said Coca-Cola. They did, but okay. So my biggest partner is Coca-Cola, and if it comes to the light that I work with you, Coca-Cola will break up with me. So I told them, okay, then, do it behind the scene. So they helped me to put together a very good educational program. And we had academics from the universities. It was really hard to find some right-wing guys who are dealing in the academic sector with communications. But we managed to do so, and of course we had some political experts. And this is what made our training system unique, that we managed to merge all different kind of knowledge into a one-of-a-kind system. And this is why some of our students became very successful in social media. And then, of course, we managed to do a very good fundraising campaign. And then it was more than evident that, real big names, journalists, anchormen, and so on, wanted to join Megaphone and wanted to help them in creating online content.
Hi, great to be here again. Thank you for having me. So throughout the Western world, and especially in Israel, there is an overwhelming dominance of liberal left-wing control over the traditional media, television, radio, newspapers. So there is a vacuum and a thirst in the public for an alternative voice, for a conservative voice. In America, it's half of the country, and in Israel, it's the majority of the country that has no representation almost no representation in traditional media. So there's a huge opportunity for average citizens, especially in Israel, to have a breakthrough while giving a voice to the voiceless. So this is how me personally got into this place, because there was nobody else. I really would love that it would be like somebody else do it and not me, because then I get all the heat and I get all the, you know, all the pushbacks and all the, you know, it's not easy, but there's no one else at that time, not now. Now it's getting much better, but at that time, a few years ago, and because I was very well known anyway, so in my country, so I was like, let's put it into good use. And I'm a very ideological person. I'm very passionate about ideology and politics, not the politics when it comes to policy makings and stuff like that. And I have very firm opinions, as anybody would know if they're following me on my social media accounts. And then it just grew and grew and grew, because then I had more and more followers, because I was honest and I was saying things as they are, not being wishy-washy and not being trying to be politically correct. I was just saying what everybody thinks but don't dare to say. And then everybody's like, oh, so it's not just me thinking this way, just as me thinking this is absurd or whatever. It's everyone. It's not that special. It's like, then you're discovering that you're not only alone and you're not a minority, you're the majority of the country. And the traditional media represent a very small fraction of the left in Israel. And I think, I don't know how it is exactly in Hungary, but in Western Europe and in America, conservatives have almost no voice in the traditional media. In America, basically, except the Fox News and New York Post, there's nothing else. So, and then on the other side, you have CNN, MSNBC, New York Times, Washington Post, you know, all the ABC, right? PBS. So it's not really balanced. So conservatives has more incentives to go and fight the fight in social media, because that's all they got.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm very close to Netanyahu. I totally agree what you said. So I started in 2013 Tichys Einblick, which was an internet magazine, just because I went out of office as chief editor of the German kind of Business Week. And within a few months, so many people followed me and read what we did. We now have about 1.8 million unique users. We have about 14 million clicks per month, and we went on the press stand 5 years ago. So we publish a monthly printed magazine, which is pretty successful. We run a weekly talk show. We run a daily radio show in the morning after 5 o'clock. It's too early for you, but it's going the whole day. And we have newsletters and everything like this. So the greatest success is maybe that if you rank social media interaction over all media, we are on place 6 or 7, which is enormous high for a new company which is just funded by myself and is playing again all those big, huge, 1,000 times bigger companies like the leftist Spiegel or Zeit or whatever. People don't follow them. I think that about 1/3 of the German audience simply doesn't follow mass media of mainstream. They follow a growing number of small entrepreneurs like me and others. There are more than I. I'm not the only and the one, which is great, because the more there are, the more difficult is it to attack you. So the most important thing is to write, to tell those stories in the mass media are not representative. We have a representation gap, and this representation gap is an enormous chance for every new entrepreneur.
Have any of you faced problems with the platforms? Have you seen, have you seen the major, well, they're basically American internet platforms try to throttle you, or have you encountered that?
As I told you, this is the good part of the story. We are pretty successful in all those Facebooks and Twitter. But as a matter of fact, this is a daily terror and fighting. The day after Elon Musk took over and brought back freedom on Twitter, our numbers on Twitter exploded, which shows us we were simply blocked. We have good data that Facebook reduces the impact of our followers and so on by about 30 to 40%. But we have lawsuits against them, which is extremely cost expensive, because you can Facebook sue only in Ireland. For a German company, a lawsuit in Ireland is almost impossible. With YouTube, if you follow us on YouTube, you will see our reach out is reduced, really dramatically reduced. And if you get to our channel, at least at 0.5 or 4 or 5 on our lists of videos, there come very bad stories about us. It's honest. Everybody can criticize us. That's fair. We do it. We have to stand the same. But I don't know why YouTube is framing us and is spinning certain stories which are extremely unfair, always on 0.4. So if you go to our channel, you see, oh, this Roland Tichy guy is such a bad boy. Don't follow him. This is the signal they send out into the markets, and it is difficult even then to grow, but we grow and do our best to bring this back again on the free market. What I'm afraid is that the European Union, the Commission, wants to deplatform companies like ours, deplatform from advertising and deplatform from social media platforms. This is a certain kind of censorship everybody should oppose.
Well, why do you guys think this is the case? Or, I mean, I was just going back to what Mr. Netanyahu was saying earlier. Basically, there had been this huge gap. If there were really freedom, then it would be super easy to break through. You've obviously broken through. I mean, is it fear on the part of the left liberal media establishment that they're like getting white knuckles, holding on to the last grasp of power? People say it's like the right wing is much funnier online. People say that the left can't meme, right? Like that all the memes online that young people are sending around, like the total volume of conservative and right wing memes is probably like 100x, but then they throttle us, or they throttle you. So why?
Well, the left can be very vicious. I know it. I experienced it on my own flesh. Yeah, if you're going out there and being a strong conservative voice, you're going to be vilified and you're going to be demonized and you're going to be attacked by the traditional media that, holds the power to do so. But you need to take it into account, and if you're aware of it and you still decide to go, so you just get used to it and you fight back, because once you start having a big follower number, you can hurt them too, you can expose them too, and you can and it's starting to be a more fair fight. It's not exactly a fair fight, but the more people are leaving traditional media and moving online, so everything is more democratic and everybody has more equal power. A traditional journalist from a big TV channel and an average citizen that became very popular and have many followers can cause a big damage for a lying journalist that is doing propaganda. You can expose it. So I think there's something good about it. Of course, there's a problem in social media. It's not exactly democratic because it's being held in very few hands. So now Twitter has been liberated sort of by Elon Musk, which gives them freedom of speech to everybody, not pushing forward conservative content, but just letting the free market do its course, take its course. But of course, Facebook, Instagram is the same company, Meta and Google. So it's basically Google and Meta control all the rest of the social media. Google control YouTube as well, and TikTok, which is, you know, that's a totally different story. So I think in order to tackle that, it has to be legislation, and probably American legislation, because this is a monopoly, and you guys have laws against monopolies. So, but you know, that's something that America needs to figure out.
I'll report back to you on that. We'll get it done as soon as we can. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, so the situation in Hungary, you know, from a historical point of view, it was like during the days of socialism, the years of socialism, it was self-evident that, you know, the media, every type of media belonged officially or unofficially to the party, the Socialist Party, the Communist Party. And what happened in Hungary in 1990, that those who were the communists, they became the social democrats or the socialists, call them whatever you want, and they managed to transfer their power, their wealthiness, their cultural power, and their media power into the so-called democratic world. So in the 1990s, the Hungarian media remained really unbalanced, and it was totally controlled by the same guys who controlled the media during the years of socialism. And it was in the elections after 2006 when the right side of the politics started to find itself and started to create their own media outlets. But I don't want to waste much words on traditional media because I'm here to talk about social media. And with social media, we cannot blame the left for, you know, being the inheritors of the socialist, wealthy guys, powerful socialist guys. It was like, I don't really know why, but we as the right side of politics, we missed the opportunity. So it was like a decade before when the left side started to build their own influencers, their own online channels in social media, and so on and so on. And then on the right side, it was, you know, the right-wing politicians operating professional pages, creating, you know, professional content. There were some right-wing news outlets, media outlets, operating professional social media Facebook sites, creating professional content, but these third party, so the NGOs, the influencers, the political commentators, they were totally missing from the right side, and we can only blame ourselves. And this is how we came into the picture. We fulfilled this gap, and we managed to fulfill. And when, you know, you talked about censorship and what we managed to went through, like we created with Mr. Filip Rákai, I guess his name rings the bell for some of you. He's the most well-known political commentator here in Hungary. So we managed to build his pages very briefly. It became very successful on Facebook. Videos with 1 million, 1.5 million views weekly. So it was really enormous. And instantly, without any warning, Facebook banned him. Like, and it was the first time when, you know, we were shocked. And what we did, of course, it's called ban evasion, which is illegal on Facebook, but, you know, no one could really stop that. We created a new page for him, and we started a campaign that if you want to fight censorship, please like and please follow Philip's new page, and this is what you can do. And we did it with plenty of, you know, political commentators at Megaphone. because anyone who became too successful too briefly got banned by Facebook because of their right-wing opinion. But it only made us stronger, I think, and this is the same true for fake news media, talking about mass media. So I can tell you, every time they wrote a false article on us, blaming us with a bunch of gibberish, so, you know, provided nothing but fake news for their audience about us. People knew that they were lying, and they started to donate us money. So it was, to be honest, it was beneficial for us. So every criticism from the fake news media made us stronger, and somehow the censorship of Facebook even made us stronger. So I think, and I am deeply convinced, and if I can tell you one thing, that is it, that the main problem conservatives, right-wingers facing on social media is not censorship by you know, the censors of Facebook, Twitter, and so on and so on. It's self-censorship. So it's like, I will not tell my, you know, right-wing opinion on Facebook because no one does. And when we started to help people to express their right-wing opinion on Facebook, it turned out that, yeah, there are right-wingers on Facebook. To be honest, the majority of Hungarian Facebook users are right-wingers. So I'm deeply convinced that even nowadays, a right-winger political commentator here in Hungary, providing good content, providing credible content, will naturally become very, very successful briefly.
Any other responses to that?
Well, I'm not against your interpretation. The question is, what is left and what is right? Usually we think about left and right on social things. What is left is being for a centralized European, being globalized, being for migration, thinking about that everything what the EU Commission does is wonderful. We started being very successful opposing migration. We are very successful in discussing energy policy in Germany. You know that we destruct our energy resources and destruct and deconstruct our industry. Nobody writes really fair about that. It's just fairy tales you get about that. And so I don't know if it's left or right. It's just intelligent to be against everything like this. To give you an example, I don't know how it works in Hungary. The EU Commission, since a few days, allows that you get insects in your food, in your beer, in your porridge, in your bread, in your everything. The only reason is, why the hell should we eat insects? We have everything for food and traditional food, and why do we go for insects? And I wrote the first articles about that, and then came the big attack against us. This is right-wing. This is right-wingness, because insects in your food is good against climate change. It's just foolish, because insects need whatever, what any cow, what any pork, what any hen, what any animal needs. It needs energy, it needs antibiotica, lots of them, by the way. It's much more resource inefficient than anything which evolution brought to us. Our insects are rindviecher, cows, pigs, and so on. But it is good to be and to eat insects. And if you are against that, you are right-wing. Are you right-wing if you do not want to eat Heuschrecken? I don't think American word, sorry about that, who don't know all this special, and I'm sure they will print it on the package of your porridge. But have you ever taken a package of your porridge or from the craft beer and tried to read. I cannot read what's printed on here. And in future, here stands, only 10% of your porridge is Vietnamese insect. Do I want this? Am I right? Am I a right-winger? So this is the question. And to bring it to an end, when the Spanish and the Portuguese started to sail around the world, we learned how big the world is. We learned about huge continents. We discovered continents. Now in mass media in Europe, the continents are shrinking. The continents of knowledge are shrinking. We are not fairly informed. We do not learn about energy. We do not learn about the reason of insects. We do not learn about this and that. So Europe as a whole is going to an unknown social system in which knowledge is only given to some priests in Brussels. So that's the truth. And so we fight against.
We will not eat the bugs.
Yeah. Not at all. And just one remarks, I couldn't agree more with what you said on, left and right is really outdated. So we need new categories, and nowadays it's about local versus global. It's about madness versus common sense. It's about God versus idols. So yeah, I'm totally.
How many sexes are there?
Yeah.
Genders.
Indeed,
at least 200.
And well, maybe you are
changes every day.
Yeah. You are not progressive enough with 200 genders.
But it's coming back to the bugs point and the absurdity of how some of these are framed in right-wing and left-wing terms. It's not just that the left liberal media platforms say, "Oh, it's right-wing to not want to eat the bugs." It's that they say it's racist, sexist, bigoted, homophobic, and anti-Semitic not to want to eat they throw all of them in there for every single thing. And I was wondering, Yair, what you think of this, because I think it's also kind of, cheapened some of these categories. I know a few years ago there were some accounts on Twitter that were breaking through their English language accounts, say about the problems around migration in Europe. They were Central European accounts, and of course they get removed for being racist, sexist, bigoted, and anti-Semitic, and that gets thrown around about pretty much all Central European media, that we have to remove. We need to remove these Hungarian politicians or media from platforms for this reason. I was just wondering what your perspective was on, again, beyond just the left-wing, right-wing thing, these categories that they use and throw at people.
So what you just said is a proof of this, the traditional media still has a lot of power, because although with the rise of social media and the democratization of opinions and voices, and anybody can be a journalist today on social media, you still, the traditional media, especially television, sorry, a little bit sick, they have the power to label and to put boundaries and say every conservative, not even conservative, opinions that used to be left-wing, moderate Democrat and left-wing in the 1990s are radical, extreme rights, alt-right today. Just, saying we need to have a real border with real, with checking in who's coming in and like being pro-immigration, but legal immigration, not illegal immigration, is now being far right, lunatic, and they have the power to say that the most radical left-wing opinions, communist, lunatic, progressive, woke opinions are mainstream and moderate, and on the other side, the opinions that shared by the majority of the population of each country, it's lunatic and radical, etc. So they still set up the tone of what will be labeled as what, and what is the boundaries, and what is extreme, and what is not extreme. But it's turning. They're losing with each passing day more and more of their power to do so. And sometimes it just look like a farce. It just look like they're living in their own bubble in DC and New York and LA, and completely disconnected, in the case of the United States, completely disconnected from the from the average American that lives in Ohio or in Kansas, or, you know, they're like living in another world. So sometimes it just looks pathetic, and they can go on with their name calling and their, you know, and their ridiculing, but it doesn't work as much as it did.
Probably creates even more of a problem, because these terms get thrown around so much that people stop caring. I mean, not that all, yeah.
Because the words lose their meaning. Kind of the progressive way of, it's like words has no meaning, you know. So you can say on anything that it's racist, anti-Semitic. So when there is something really racist, when there is something really anti-Semitic, so it's like, it's not that bad anymore, because everything is racist and anti-Semitic. So it makes a big damage to fighting real racism, real anti-Semitism, real homophobia, because if everything is this, so nothing is this. So it doesn't matter, the real stuff too. So they're causing their own, you know, agenda that they're supposed to be representative, but they're not.
I think conservatives should go over certain frontiers. The question is simply, who the fuck has to eat insects? The poor ones have to eat insects. The rich ones will have this very expensive food. Who is negative driven by migration in Germany? Not the rich ones. They live in their big houses with police around them, or private police, private schools, and everything like this. It is the poor ones who lose their jobs, who lose their apartments, and so on. And who is negative, has the negative impact of genderism? The German soccer club society, I mean, Deutscher Fußballclub, those who have all this soccer, which is very important for Germany and Hungary too, because they're playing so tall, they allow now men to go to women's soccer clubs if they declare themselves as women. So, as a matter of fact, we will have male clubs and we have female clubs, and the female clubs are men too. And so on and so forth. So whatever you see, it is not the classical ups and downs questions we have in leftists and rightists and elite or not elite. No, it is a certain global elite which does certain things. The great mass of people in the society are harmed. That's a matter of fact. And we have to express that. I'm not against migration because I don't like people with another color on their skin. I don't like migration in this case because it ruins the social welfare state in Germany. It simply ruins that thing, which is, after World War II, is one of our great cultural advantages. Medical care, in pension systems, everything is ruined simply because too many people take out and too less people pay in. So you can go through all those things, and at the end I ask you the question, why should we eat insects?
I want to strengthen Roland's point that I think you put the finger on exactly the point, that the big rift between right and left in 2023 is not between socialist and capitalist, or between nationalist and more, I don't know, like more than doves. It's more about global elites that feel obliged and connected to each other in other countries versus the local blue-collar, you know, population that care for the interests of their own nation. rather than the global elite. So I think it's more elites against blue collar or, you know, the local people and the local interest of the country rather than the globalist interest, which is, it cannot be the same because, and I think that today the right represent the real democracy, the real liberty, because the right believes democracy cannot happen without the sovereignty of the people. How do you have the sovereignty of the people materialize through elections, and who can participate in these elections? The citizens. Now, if there's no meaning of being a citizen and there's no borders and there's no nationalities, well, who leads this unified global world? Obviously, there's not going to be elections, global elections, right? And it's also not fair, because if there's global elections, the Hungarians are 10 million people, Israelis are 9 million people, but the Chinese are 1.5 billion, and the Indian are, so it cannot be fair. So the only way to express democracy and the will of the people is through elections of national countries, of nation states. So when you see the European Union and the UN, and it's not democratic institutes, the people has almost no say in who will represent them. It's more a bureaucratical, multinational superstructure that elect themselves and not by the people. So this is a very dangerous idea for democracy.
May I reflect on both of you? So I started with Yair. You said that words started to lose their real meanings. And in one way I agree, on another way, from another aspect, it's not about the real meaning of the words, but who is the one, you know, can declare someone, you know, according to the European Commission, the European Parliament, Hungary is a country of anti-Semitism. Why so? Because the government put George Soros on a billboard stating that he is financing illegal migration, which is a fact. But on the other hand, you will find Netherlands. I just read yesterday that 1/4, so like 26 or some % of young Dutch denying Holocaust. But since the European Commission and the European Parliament and different branches of the European Parliament declaring Hungary to be, you know, anti-Semitic, and Netherlands is totally in line with the modern standards of democracy, it is us. So it's about who can declare. And this is how mass media comes into picture, that the owners and prominence of mass media started to, and I cannot tell you the exact date when it started, but over the past decades, they started to serve this certain ideology. And we cannot really say what is this ideology, but the followers of it are zealots, bigots. It's really a religion for them. And this is why, you know, back to the insect thing, bug eating thing. I have no problem with someone eating bugs. I've been to Asia. I've seen people eating bugs. I did not, and I don't want to, but I have no problem with someone eating bugs. The problem is the European Union wants to force us to eat bugs.
Exactly.
So, and if I ask back that, okay, but I don't want to eat bugs, how dare you? How dare you? This is the answer. Because you are bigot, you are zealot, you are anti-Semitic, you are racist, you are someone from the Middle Ages if you don't want to eat insect. And the problem is that these the dogmas of this religion are changing. I wouldn't say daily, but each year. Like last year, it was the climate change. Now it's insects. A couple of years ago, it was about rainforests. And you will never know what comes next. So the standards of their vision of democracy, rule of law, is very vague. And there is a small number of prophets, if you say, the elite of their church, who is able to declare what is in line with their teachings and what is against it. And the mass media serving this elite. And this is the real problem. And this is what people had enough of. And this is why more and more people turn to alternative information, and this is why, you know, directs them towards different platforms of social media.
Yeah, but the important thing is, don't think me a bug hater. I'm not. I just want.
I am shocked.
I just want to point it out what happens, and you have some more. I give you some more examples because what these people say is contradictory to what happens. You named antisemitism. Antisemitism in Germany in our history is a very difficult thing. We have big organizations, Friday for Future, Last Generations, and so on, and they declare them they are fighting against climate change. They are fighting against Israel. They have close connections with the Palestinian terror organizations. That's the point, and we have to point that out. And we, in Germany, fight with all force we have now against climate change. We have about 2% of the worldwide emissions, but we will solve it, we will save the world. The thing is, our emission of CO2, this climate gas, explodes. Very simple. If you stop nuclear energy and if you burn dirty coal, you get really bad emissions. So it's always against two things, reality and the normal people. That's it. It's against reality. It makes us poor. It makes us unfree. It makes us unsafe. And it's against those people who cannot live in their expensive apartments somewhere in the outskirts. It's against the normal, simple people.
So following the points of Istvan and Roland, I really want to, make a point that first of all, regarding Hungary, being against Soros is not anti-Semitism, maybe the contrary. Soros is causing tremendous damage to the only Jewish state in the world. He's funding with billions of dollars radical NGOs inside Israel that destroy our society from within, which are anti-Zionist, anti-Jewish, pro-Palestinian, and anarchist. So he's causing a tremendous damage to the sole Jewish country in the world. And regarding Germany, the left in Germany who claims to be against racism and against anti-Semitism is doing the same thing with the German government. Has a very weird system that each party in the Bundestag can have a foreign aid to whatever NGO in the world they want. So parties like Die Linke and other left-wing parties in the Bundestag are donating a lot of taxpayer German money to the most radical NGOs in Israel that are, very pro-Palestinian, and basically what they're doing, the point of what this German left-wing money is doing in Israel is to push this narrative that actually Israel is like Nazi Germany, and Israel is acting like Nazi Germany vis-a-vis the Palestinians, which is, I don't even need to say how absurd it is, but the point is that maybe what the Holocaust was and what the German nation has did in the Holocaust is not so bad. It's not so unique. If the Jews, the victims themselves, are like Nazis, so maybe we're not that bad, which, of course, this is Holocaust denial, and this is absurd. There was nothing like the Holocaust in human history, putting millions of people in gas chambers and murdering 1 million children and basically wiping out majority of the community in Europe in 6 years. But maybe they try to take off some of the blame by portraying their victims as today's oppressors. So it's outrageous and it's vicious, and that's real anti-Semitism, what the left of Germany is doing.
And they do the same thing within Europe, since in Western Europe, anti-Semitic attacks have basically exploded. I know, but if you report on them, then it's racist and probably anti-Semitic to report on the anti-Semitic attacks. Meanwhile, Central Europe and Hungary is a welcoming place, but it's completely upside down. So, well, the Slido mechanism is open, so please feel free to submit your questions for this panel, and we will take those as they come in. I just wanted to, this takes us back in a little bit of a different direction for the moment, but the question is basically about starting out on social media. You know, what are the most effective ways, questions, what are the most effective ways to start out on social media, particularly if you're not that known and the algorithm is out to get you? I know, Yair, you've experimented with a lot of different social media, including TikTok and short videos and things like that. So what would you guys say is how can young voices get around and make their start?
I have a very good answer to this. Come to Megaphone. So we can teach you everything.
Megaphone.
If you are really wants to be successful in social media, and if you are really passionate, we can help you. We have a 3-level training program, a 4 days boot camp, then like some special trainings on special fields, and then we have a real talent program. The participants of which becoming really, really successful on social media. The problem is that we cannot. There's no golden rule of thumb there's no sorcerer's stone, philosopher's stone, sorry, how to become successful. The most important thing is to tell the truth and to be credible, and all the rest can be taught at Megaphone.
So I'm not doing that much videos as you actually mentioned, which I wish I should, but I'm a different case because I'm very well known in my country, so I can afford this. But I would say for an up-and-coming, not known person, first of all, yes, videos is very important. Short videos of 1 minute, not more than that, on Instagram Reels and TikTok, and having an online Twitter account, that's kind of important because of the average person is not on Twitter, but the journalist is, and this is like the clique of the, in politics, so it's kind of good to have a Twitter account as well. And you need to be passionate about it, you need to be real, you can't be, if you're fake and you're saying stuff you don't believe in, it's not, if you don't believe about what you're saying yourself, nobody else is going to believe it, so you need to be truthful and representing your, truth, and you need to stand out, and you need to be unique and have a different voice or different representation, because the average person is bombarded 24/7 with so much news, so much, online notifications, scrolling on Instagram, on TikTok. So you need to stand out and catch the eye and catch the attention of that person that's seeing something else that he didn't see a million times before just today. So,
Well, the representative or representation gap we talked at the beginning of our discussion is growing bigger the younger the people are. Because the younger ones are totally blockaded by school, by organizations, and so on and so far. But they are not in this way, to take the word I don't like, they are not leftists or bug lovers. They have to look for their way to make themselves heard, and they can either go to a bigger organization as we are now, it's not big, but it's better than nothing, or do it on Instagram or do it on Twitter and so on. The good thing is you don't need capital. The cost of entrance is almost nothing. I started my business with a MacBook, which is not that extremely expensive, and this is all you need. You must see that the old news organizations need capital, need machinery, need distribution machinery, and so on and so forth. In the 50s, a conservative publisher said, Freedom of press in Germany is the freedom of 200 very rich families. This was it. Because you need all those building printing machines and so on and so forth. Now you don't need them. You just need a laptop. And this is the biggest chance for expressing yourself you ever have. And you can join others. We had, I should just say, must say, we had even a journalistic group of young students we trained. Unfortunately, some bigger one came into the market and hired 20 people from our school, and so we are empty. But this shows there is a need for young voices. There is a need for young faces. There is a need for young expressions everywhere, because it is not an old boys network. It is what the younger ones need. I'm out of game. I have done this, but it is the younger generation who can influence this, and they know how to manage it. They have a more natural, for such an old dog as me, it's difficult to do all these internet things, but the younger ones have all the competence to do that, and just do it. I think the word is just do it.
There's a question for Mr. Netanyahu. What are the upsides and downsides of being popular and controversial in Israeli politics, and how did you do it right at the beginning in the first year or two?
Well, the downside are very painful, because it's not about being controversial, it's being on the wrong side of the traditional media.
Yeah, that's another word that they throw around, right?
If you're on the wrong side, which is the side of the majority of the Israeli people, but but not the Israeli media, which is almost 95% controlled by very radical the most radical left wing you can imagine, that represents maybe 5 or 10% of the Israeli population, but controls almost 100% of the media and academia. So that's tough. That's it's painful sometimes, but if you believe in your cause, it's worth it, because with time you're really changing the discourse of your country. You're bringing forward issues and information that nobody knows about, and it's hard to challenge them. Even the traditional media, it's hard to challenge the truth. I mean, propaganda can do so far, but reality is stronger. So I feel satisfied by influencing the public discourse and common knowledge of the average Israeli about issues that have been suppressed and hide. What was the question regarding the first
How
year?
did you, what was it like right at the very beginning?
So
Or
for many years,
if there was a beginning.
So yes, I never had any social media presence before 2018. I was a good boy. I knew the media is hating my dad, and I knew they're looking for me as well. So I kept a low profile. I didn't have any social, I had only Facebook that was with a false name and only close to friends, so it was not public, and but then the media was targeting me anyway and vilifying me anyway, although nobody knew my opinions and I didn't say anything and I was quiet, but they were still going after me and trying to destroy my reputation. So then I figure out, if they're doing it anyway, I guess I have nothing to lose, because at least I can open up public accounts on social media and fight back and say my side of the story and fight for what I believe in, because I had a lot to say and I just was keeping it to myself because I don't want to get in trouble. But I'm getting in trouble anyway, so I might as well. So, this is how it started in 2018 when I decided no more, I'm going to fight back. And they're vilifying me, well, I'm going to share some awkward information about them that nobody knows and I know. And, I'll push back. So that's how it happened. And just kept growing and growing ever since.
Cool. the question is, do numbers matter in social media now? They seem to matter in a different way today. 10 years ago, it was mostly organic growth. We've seen, obviously, in the interim, you know, CNN has 3 million followers, but they get 0 interaction. After Elon Musk took over Twitter, it was obvious that a lot of the accounts were spam accounts and bots and things like that. So does the number of followers matter anymore? And or how do you get a sense of what matters in terms of the reactions to your content and material?
It is the question of homeless media, because there is not even a homepage. It is difficult. As I told you, we have a monthly news magazine, 100 pages, which is very important and brings us money for doing the other things. But the most powerful thing now is Twitter and Facebook and those things. And I can tell you, the biggest success we had. You know that in Berlin there were elections. Elections is the most important thing in democracy, 4 million people, and those elections were manipulated. We were obviously manipulated. But nothing happened. So at the end, I sent 12 young students with their handy cameras into the election office where the material was stored. And they photographed and documented 60,000 pages of paper. And on these 60,000 pages of papers, we sorted, we made it transparent, and we saw that the votes were with a red stick, with a red ink corrected. Imagine you have a list of CDU gets this number, and so on, and it is corrected so that the government has its majority. And at the end, they elect in 2 weeks again, because we made so much force in Berlin. And the old media, they hate us. They hate us because it has been their job, and they missed it. And this is the point I want to tell you. The old media don't do their job, but people need information. The old media are telling you that communication is going down. No, throughout history of mankind, the importance of communication is growing, and it will still grow forever. And if the old media don't communicate with the people in any way, with followers and interaction, or if they write articles and if picking up what people really interests, and if it's bugs. At the end, we have the power to interest, to fascinate peoples by different and for us cheap ways of communication. That's the important thing. Journalism is to fascinate people. And in former times, you needed a big printing house. These days, you just need a laptop.
So I cannot talk about the numbers with regard to media, but with regard to political commentators. And I would say that content is the king, meaning that good content, and if you are able to provide good content continuously, you're gonna have the numbers, you're gonna be successful. You can help it with advertising, but advertising money is like a multiplicator, and what you have if you multiply, 1,000 times 0, of course it's 0. So if the original content is not good enough, you can advertise it, you will reach nothing. And this is why it was really false when the leftist fake news media during the campaign blamed us that you spent 1 million euros, you spent 2 million euros, you spent 3 million euros on advertising your propaganda, and I can prove you with numbers that they spent approximately the same amount. What the difference was, what the number of interactions, comments, shares, likes, which was 10-1 to our favor, with the same advertising money. So the most important thing is to provide good quality content, which is interesting, and if you are able to do it continuously, you will have the numbers.
In my opinion, I think the answer is yes and no, because on the one hand, of course, there is so many, you know, companies and people that buy fake followers and bots, and there's so many fake accounts and bots. So interactions is a good way to see how much of it's real, and also how much, you know, the content is really interesting or not. People to just follow and they forgot about it. But on the other hand, there is an importance of a number of followers, because come on, if you see something very, like, somebody stating a fact that you've never heard of it and you're not sure if it's true or not. So if you check his profile and he has 2,000 followers, maybe it's just like a random crazy person. But if he has 5 million people, it's like followers, you say, oh, wow, like, wow, this is serious. I'm probably going to believe it, you know, what this guy is saying. So yeah, so it's yes and no.
500 followers account created in December of 2022 with like really sophisticated foreign policy views, might be some weird deep state op, you know. But anyway, we're coming up on the end of our time here. But there's one last question for Mr. Netanyahu. You can answer it or not as you prefer. But the question is whether you have a reaction to criticism of your visit to Hungary in Israeli media. Apparently, Haaretz.com says, you know, Orban's PR hothouse recruits right-wing Israeli influencers. So, there was a question.
I really don't give a damn. I mean, first of all, this specific newspaper has a reach of maybe 2% of the Israeli population. It's the most radical, lunatic, kind of left. Up until a few years ago, it was owned by the Nazi corporation, the former Nazi corporation, Daumann Schauberg, that was responsible, I don't know if you heard of it, was in the Second World War of spreading Nazi propaganda. And the current owner, who was the son of the one that, the previous owner that had a very high rank civilian honor from the SS, his son was in the Hitler Jugend, and he owned like 30% of this newspaper up until a few years ago, so I don't give a damn about this newspaper anyway. But it's all fake. It's all fake media bubble that live, you know, and nobody in Israel really cares about that. And there's not really criticism. It was like an opinion column about many things regarding, and they put me in the, but we stop getting in Israel excited about what they, or care about what they say, because they are irrelevant. They keep, you know, they can keep their tantrum facades like once in a while. But the average Israeli just realized now, they're doing propaganda, and everybody is like, okay, who cares?
Thank you very much to each of you, and please join me in thanking our guests.
Thank you so much.